Welcome to the East Carolina Christian College and Seminary family. We're happy that you have decided to embark upon this journey, a journey of self-discovery and life-changing opportunities. I'm Dr. Anthony Vann, Assistant Dean of Academic Studies here at Eastern Carolina Christian College and Seminary doctoral programs. I think Malcolm Gladwell probably summed it up best in his book entitled The Outliers, The Story of Success. This book looks at two things, opportunity and legacy. By making the decision to join Eastern Carolina Christian College and Seminary, you've taken the opportunity. What you do while you're here and what you carry forward will determine your legacy and the success of the program. Today, I have the opportunity to speak with you about one of your first major projects that you will embark upon on this journey, your spiritual autobiography. The spiritual autobiography is 20 pages minimum, and it discusses you. One of the things that we often find is kind of hard to talk about who we are simply because we're normally caregivers and thinking of others. The spiritual autobiography, especially being one of the first projects that you actually start with, I think is a great thing. We've all heard the analogy at this point in time in your life. You've probably flown on an airplane, or you've at least heard that the flight attendants tell you that in the case of an accident, first pull down your airbag and save yourself before trying to save someone else. So every now and then in this walk of life, we have to sit back and we just kind of have to think about ourselves and the things that motivate us and the things that we can build upon in order to be able to be that resource to help others. As you look in your manuals, you will see that the spiritual autobiography has several sections that you will actually talk about. So when we start talking about 20 pages, one of the things that I see a lot of people do is immediately say, wow, 20 pages. But when you really sit back and you think about it, and I know we're going to have various ages that I'm talking to, but our life experiences are far more greater than 20 pages. It's divided in about 10 different topics, and if we look at it, really that's roughly about 2 pages. So once you actually get started, you might end up with 30 pages or 40 pages, which there's no problem with that. We're just saying that the minimum is 20 pages. The first part of the spiritual autobiography is the introduction. The introduction is simply an overview of your life. This is your opportunity to introduce your readers to the topics that you're going to be covering, and also an opportunity to entice your readers to want to read more. I encourage you to make this as interesting as possible. We all have different styles of how we write and how we come up with our concepts for writing and how we come up with our ideas. So some people actually go ahead with the actual body and the content of the paper and come back to the introduction later. However you choose to do it, I'm sure it will be a success. But I do ask that you make sure that it's interesting and that it is something that entices the reader to want to read more. The second part of the spiritual autobiography is the early life. All of us have memories of our youth. This is what you're discussing here. I personally can remember writing my spiritual autobiography and having the opportunity to talk about growing up in a small rural town, Clinton, North Carolina, and the things that I learned from the tobacco fields and the pepper fields, things that I hated at that particular time and moment, but later on I discovered that it would be very essential in the person that I had become, and it was those times that helped instill work ethics. So even early memories have a lot to do with the sum total of who we become. So the early life is simply talking about the early memories you have of your youth and childhood. So the next topic is the conversion experience. The conversion experience is simply talking about the day you decided to give your life to Christ. What was that moment like? What was the situations? What was the details around that particular moment? That's going to be very personal for each of us. One of the things I discovered with working with different students through the program is that some of them found it very hard with the spiritual autobiography, but I think that's great because some things we block out intentionally. This gives us a chance to relive it, simply because, again, all of our experiences are the sum total of the fabric of our lives. And so if those things happened, those are things that we do have to address. But the conversion experience is simply talking about the day you decided to give your life to Christ. You're called to ministry. That's identifying what ministries you currently work in, how you've been serving in those ministries, and how you came to this. What gave you the revelation to want to be a part of the ministries that you are now currently involved in? This can do one of two things. Sometimes it helps us discover that we're possibly not in the place that we really need to be. If the ministry we're serving in does not align with our passion or what we feel is our mission, sometimes we can find through this process of writing it down on paper that, we're not going to be as effective. Maybe we get burnt out really quickly. Maybe we need to look at something else. So your call to ministry is simply not talking about where you want to be, but talking about currently where you are, what ministries you're involved in, and how you got involved in them. The next part of the paper is steward of ministry, stewardship of ministry. We're talking about your theology. Your theology, most simply put, theology is the study of God. It comes from the word theos, which is Greek for God, and ology, which is from the Greek word logos, meaning word. Most literally, then the word theology means words about God or the study of God. Generally speaking, theology is a belief system that is built upon intellectually and emotionally held commitments concerning God and man. It provides a foundation for your philosophy and for your worldview, which in turn sets inclinations for your heart, your actions, and the decisions in all of your situations. Everything is affected by your theology. So this is what you're going to be discussing in this particular part. You're going to be talking about what you believe and why you believe it. The next part is your strengths and abilities. We all have strengths and we all have abilities. Sometimes we look at other people and we feel like they are possibly more talented than we are. However, I'm sure we're all familiar with the story in the Bible where God gave everyone in His presence talents. Some had more than others, and the ones who possibly only had one kind of felt like that they were shortchanged. Well, I encourage you to kind of think about this today. Sometimes less is more, because it gives you the opportunity to concentrate on that one thing that you know that you can do well. Sometimes when we're multi-talented and have several different things that we can do, we are a jack of all trades and the master of none. So regardless of what you feel like your talents would be, are, be it many or be it few, this is your opportunity to talk about your strengths and abilities. I firmly believe that God gave all of us the talent of some kind, whether it be speaking. Some may be able to sing, some may be great prayers, and sometimes we forget that even listening is a talent. The world we live in today, we actually need more listeners. So never belittle the things that you're good at, and this is the time to discover the things that God has implanted into your life. The next section is your interest and passions. What motivates you? What really gets that gear turning inside of you and making you want to be better, making you want to reach out to others and share those particular interests or those passions with others. The next section we're going to cover is your areas of improvement. As a director of support services for the state of North Carolina, I actually had the opportunity to sit on or chair many interview boards. One of the questions I always want to ask of anyone that I'm interviewing is, talk to me about your strengths and your weaknesses. I'm always a little leery about individuals who feel as though they have no weaknesses. Regardless of how accomplished we feel we are or how many things we've done, we all have areas that we can work on. As long as we're living, there is room for growth. So this is the opportunity to discuss areas that you've identified that possibly you can improve on. It doesn't make you less of a person. It actually just kind of shows that you're being honest with yourself and you understand you have not reached that thing called perfection, which none of us have, and we can all continue to learn and grow. The next section we will discuss is your responsibility and accountability. If we look back over the last 8 or 9 topics that we have discussed, and we're talking about our early life, our conversion experience, our theology, our strengths, abilities, interests, and passions. We're pretty much kind of talking about our testimony, the things that we've been through in life, things that we have discovered in life. With that comes accountability. Even if we look at the story of Job and the things that Job had to go through, Job went through those things for a reason, the same way that we each go through different trials, tribulations, even good experiences in life. We go through it for a reason, because God is holding us accountable and responsible for what He wants us to share with the world. So your accountability and your responsibility is simply, what do you feel God is holding you accountable and responsible for sharing with the world? Another topic we'll discuss is identify a personal crisis or situation and how you responded. I often tell people it's not about what happens to you in life, it's how you respond to it. As long as we keep living, we're going to face opposition, at one time or the other. Again, I told you early on, I grew up in a small rural town, and I remember a song that they used to sing every Sunday, and I really didn't understand the meaning of it at the time, but as you get older, you understand a little bit more. And the words to the song simply says, if you've never had any trouble in your life, wait a while. I definitely can attest to that today. So, I say to you, if you haven't had any oppositions or you haven't been through anything, it is not the matter of if, it's simply the matter of when. But it's not what happens to you, but how did you respond? So we're talking about personal crises and situations. So these are things that, again, that a lot of times people block out. They really don't want to discuss. However, I can assure you that God did not allow you to go through it without a purpose and a reason behind it. Everything that happens to us, there's a lesson to be learned. There's a story to be shared with others. So those are the things that you will discuss in that particular section. And last but not least, your last topic of conversation for your spiritual autobiography is your legacy of ministry. We all understand that we have a birth date and there's going to be an end date. The Bible tells us that man born of a woman has but a few days upon this earth, and they will be full of troubles. So one day we will have to say goodbye to, no matter how much we built, how many things we've done, how many titles we've added to our names. One day we will have to say goodbye to this world, and in order to live again, there has to be a transition. There's been many people done great things. We've got a holiday for Martin Luther King, but Martin Luther King had to leave one day. We talk about Peter, we talk about Paul, and we talk about John the Baptist, and they were all great men. And David was even God even characterized him as someone who was after his own heart, someone after his own heart. But David had that time when he had to leave this earth. When we say goodbye, when we leave this earth, what impact do you want to make? What legacy do you want to live? Nobody wants to say that I was just there. You want to say I was here and my life made a difference. So that's what you're going to be discussing in your legacy of ministry. Again, welcome to the Eastern Carolina Christian College and Seminary family. I encourage you to please work with your core faculty. If you have additional questions after viewing this and you still need guidance, build that relationship. As staff, that is exactly what we are here for, is to work with you and help develop as well as nourish those things that God is bringing forth in your life as you embark upon this journey. I ask that you trust the process and enjoy the journey. Thank you very much. Again, I'm Dr. Anthony O. Vann. God bless.